call this to order. We've got a lot of interesting things going on. First order of business is for us to take attendance, just to get everybody here. So indicate your attendance on the board. And everybody's here. So very, very good. And very convenient that we don't have anyone coming in remotely this morning. So that's a number. But we have a lot of bills on the docket. However, a number of them are either substantively similar or identical to other bills. And having worked out with all the papers that we're presenting, we narrowed it down to the ones that are going to be vehicles through. So to let you know, this morning, we'll entertain, and actually without objection, we can take by House Bills 942, House Bill 1090, House Bill 24, House Bill 187, House Bill 780, and House Bill 941. Second. Voice vote, all in favor? Aye. So those are mine. Now that leaves us with just three bills to work on this morning. House Bill 46, House Bill 544, and House Bill 185. And let's begin with House Bill 46, Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is House Bill 46, and this is a bill at some length, but it includes a number of familiar provisions to this committee, some of which you've seen before, some of which have been in law and are not in law, or vice versa. So let me go through just briefly the provisions of the bill, then say a little bit about that. I was told there would be some people who would be joining us to speak, and I'm not sure whether it will be in person or hybrid. One of the joys of 7 a.m. would be having hybrid connections. What the bill does, first of all, and preeminently as I see it, is require a photo identification in order to be able to vote. If one is not provided, the voter may vote a provisional ballot instead, and there also are provisions that allow for the Commonwealth, through its localities, to provide for photo ID for voters that may not, in those uncommon circumstances, not have one. That's the first. The second portion of the bill recognizes the experience of voters in enjoying early voting. What it does, however, is limits that, or refines, I guess, our experiment with that from the current 45 days to 7 days leading up to Election Day. The third change that it provides is to change the absentee ballot application to be required annually instead of allowing a standing ongoing list. What this does is asks a voter to affirmatively note that he or she is still there and wants that absentee ballot. It also requires, finally, that a ballot received by the general registrar after the close of polls on Election Day must be postmarked clearly the day before Election Day or earlier in order to be counted. Let me put in summary why I've brought this bill. In a sentence, these measures provide, first, an abundant opportunity to exercise the sacred right to vote while doing due diligence to ensure that the voters who vote are eligible to do so. Many of you know that I spent 32 years in the classroom teaching, and one class that I taught every year was government. I also taught a number of history and English and other classes, but government was at the heart of it. One of the things that I taught every year had to do with the provisions regarding voting. We always brought in the local registrar to sign up 18-year-olds to vote. So for me, this is absolutely central to who we are as a representative democracy, a republic in the old term. As a society dedicated to liberty and justice for all, we're duty-bound to protect the vote of every eligible voter from being stolen or from being diluted by fraudulent ballots. The Supreme Court has considered one photo ID case, and that was the 2008 case of Crawford versus Marion County. In that case, plurality of the court, 6-3, or actually the majority of the court, acting through two separate opinions, found that Indiana's law was not, did not impose excessively burdensome requirements. And I will note that the court's opinion was rendered and announced by John Paul Stevens, who at that stage of his career was considered in, and I don't necessarily like these terms, but he was considered to be in the liberal bloc of the court. I would note also that public opinion polls note that the public overwhelmingly backs voter ID requirements, photo ID requirements. Over 3/4 would like people to show a photo ID when they cast a ballot. Only 14 actively oppose it in one recent poll on the question. And that includes those who supported President Joe Biden in the 2020 election. They, by a majority of 62% to 24%, also support it. The same kinds of things are seen whether you go to Republicans, to Democrats, to those who are black, those who are Hispanic. In each case, and I will not burden you with specific stats unless you would like those. 45 days, I would say, of early voting is expensive, and it's not needed. Early voting is most heavily used in the last week rather than during the early time frame. I know probably a number of you did, as I did, attended those early voting and had a chance to speak to some of the people who were showing up early. I have the very good fortune of living across the road from where the early voting took place in my home county. I happen to live in the little village of Powhatan Courthouse. So I was there on a somewhat regular basis and had a chance to talk to people. It was very slow, the early days, so I didn't spend as much time there. But it was very busy in the last week, and so had a chance to speak to voters who I know would identify themselves on across the spectrum politically on this question. I would note one other thing in going through a list, and I checked several different lists, including Ballotpedia. There are 17 or 18 other states that require photo ID. They include such bastions of conservatism as Rhode Island and Michigan, along with a number of other states that you probably would anticipate would be on such a list. Many other states, like Connecticut, require the photo ID if it's a first-time voter. Sometimes those who allow registration by mail, or for voters using same-day registration, they are asked in a number of states to show a photo ID. Those are the basic provisions and my rationale for bringing this bill. It's my hope that you will consider this favorably, that all of us would embrace this desire that every eligible voter be able to vote and that their vote not be diluted by those who might be involved in mischief in voting. Mr. Chairman, that's the bill.
Thank you, Delegate Ware. It was my mistake to let you get started. I do believe that you also have a substitute for the bill that was introduced, and we should have taken that up.
I should have mentioned that. You're very.
It is early, so we'll clean the cobwebs out. But if someone would like to move the substitute, move the second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Substitute is now before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So to give you a little bit of how we'll operate today, we're going to start with comments from members, and then we'll move to online and audience in-person comments for this bill. So any questions for the patron from members of the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I had pressed the, is that thing working? Okay. So, Delegate Ware, you've packed a lot of information into this one particular bill, including voter ID as well as early voting and other things. I have a question about the early voting because you made an anecdotal comment about the fact that 45 days of early voting is not really used that much until you get to 7 days before. Do you have anything quantitative that you could actually share for us across the Commonwealth that would show that there was a steep increase or just any data that would support that?
I don't have data with me. I'm sure, and there may well be someone representing one of the voter registrar organizations, the Board of Elections, who can give that. They clearly, those numbers exist. I can speak to it anecdotally from the 4 counties that I represent in Central Virginia, because I am aware in each of those cases that obtained, but I don't have numbers.
And Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, and I appreciate those 4 counties, and especially with you living across the district from one, I would just highlight that I believe in Loudoun County, anecdotally, I believe that the 45 days of early voting was used very much because we constantly had kind of lines outside of the one location where this was going on, because it's one of those things where I think it is probably a local type of thing where people are out busy, they're running errands and they're doing different things, and then they're like, oh, I can go vote early. And so they work it into their routine between going to the grocery store or going to Home Depot. So I think it's one of those things where it might be a little bit different in your area than it is in my area.
Okay. Delegate Adams. Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. So one of the things that is often said when we're making a law is, what's the problem you're trying to fix? And so I'm just curious, you mentioned eligibility. Like what has been the problem? Is there a rampant problem with people showing up to vote that are ill qualified or not Virginia citizens? Or I'm just lost about what is the issue.
Yeah, there are a number of instances, admittedly not widespread and not common, but there are a number of instances where there have been people who were signed up and should not have been signed up, and a photo ID would be one simple way to ensure that this is the person that this is not, or this is not a person, despite the signing. I'm also aware of several instances where somebody showed up to the poll on voting day and found that in some fashion their name had been taken and their vote allegedly had been cast. They were, I will tell you, very upset about that. I got several calls in my office in regard to that. In fact, I can remember 2. So that would be that instance for me.
And follow up, Mr. Chair. And that's, I guess, what was my follow-up was going to be. Are we talking like 5 out of the state of Virginia, or are we talking like 5,000?
If we're saying 2 in my district who called me, I often note that a call, and I say this as a former newspaper editor, if I got 1 call, I assume there were a few more that probably felt that way and had a similar experience. So I received 2. I would take that to mean there were at least those 2 in my district. Multiply by 100, you're talking 200. Again, I know I'm not speaking scientifically here, but I think it's a fair assumption there were others who experienced that.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll go down to some questions from the, Delegate McGuire?
I just want to speak to the bill.
Okay, go ahead and do
I
that.
was going to say, in 2017, David Yancey won his election by 1 vote. That made everyone vote yes.
Thank you, Delegate McGuire. All right, we'll go now to our online folks. We have several signed up for, and because we have a very limited amount of time, I'm going to ask everybody to limit their comments to 1 minute, and just let us know what your position is very quickly. We'll start with, is Shralika Pale with us this morning online? Morning. Thank you, Ms. Polly. And next up, we have Mr. Tom Ferguson. Mr. Ferguson, are you with us? Yeah, I'll let that be up to you. Again, we just got to keep it crisp. Okay? Then we will allow you to do that and move on to Mr. Kuhn Wang. Mr. Wang, Mr. Wang, and I, just in the interest of time, I've got to stop you there. But I really appreciate your comments and thank you very much. We've got a lot of people that want to be able to speak on this in a very limited amount of time. But thank you for your testimony this morning, and we will move on to Mr. Chantel Cooper. Mrs. Chantel Cooper. Are you in the room with us this morning?
Mr. Chairman, I'm being told that the folks on the live stream cannot hear the virtual testimony.
Ah. Okay. Yes, Ms. Cooper, we can hear you. So if you want to go ahead. Ms. Cooper, thank you so much. And next up, we have Mr. Paul Lott. Mr. Lott, are you with us this morning? Yes. Welcome, Mr. Lott. Thank you, Mr. Lott. Now we have Mr. Joe Mobley. Mr. Mobley, are you in the room? And welcome. We can. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mobley. And anyone in the audience that is here to speak in favor of this legislation? Seeing none, we do have one person signed up to speak in opposition. Ms. Jasmine Liu, are you with us, Jasmine, this morning? Yes, we can. All right, thank you for your testimony this morning. And I believe that's everything. Delegate Ware, we have somebody else in the audience for against. So sorry, I was about to skip over that. So I want to make sure we hear from you.
Hi, I'm Deb Wake, the president of the League of Women Voters of Virginia, and I'm here to speak in opposition of the bill. As you look at everyone who has the opportunity to testify today, we are the people of privilege who have this opportunity. It does not represent everyone who works or for whatever reason is not part of this legislative process. And we are here to speak for all voters, and not everyone has the ability to obtain an ID, even if it's given for free. They're still getting off work, trying to get there to get that ID. And it doesn't take care of the fraud or it's a felony to impersonate voters, as the last speaker said. It rarely happens as to be insignificant. We had 6 years of voter ID from 2014 to 2020, and there was really no evidence that that made the election any more secure than the ones that we've just had without IDs. And so for these reasons, we oppose the bill.
Thank you for your testimony. We have one more.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, James Heo with Fairfax County. For the reasons delineated by the previous speakers, we oppose this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Mr. Chair, speaking to the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the body, I think enough has been said in the testimony, broadly speaking, but I just want to make a note that in the autopsy report that the Board of Elections did in the last year, they noted that it was the safest and most secure election we've had, and that we've done a lot over the last couple of years to put our elections on even more solid ground than they already are. And you know, it strikes me when people say put confidence back into the election system. the number one way we could do that is if politicians and media figures would just tell the truth about how our elections are safe and secure. When you kick up a lot of dust and you make these vague claims that are unsubstantiated by fact, of course people believe that the election isn't safe and secure, even if it was. I would note that the ID provisions that we have were the provisions pre-2014 in Virginia, and I don't think Virginia for over a century, or however long those were on the books, had massive fraud on any scale. But I'd also just note, on top of that this is now an omnibus bill in which Delegate Ware is attempting to roll back a lot of the provisions that we put under law that put us from being the second hardest state to vote in to the 12th easiest in terms of access. And I know we're going to have a good-natured fight over that. I think that'll probably be a partisan vote. But as another civics teacher, I'm particularly proud that we went from being one of the hardest states into one of the easiest while maintaining our security and the security of the ballot. And so I would hope that we would vote against this bill. I think we've made a lot of changes for the positive. I think in many ways we have overcome our history while maintaining the integrity of our elections and being a beacon for democracy across the country. And so I would hope we would vote no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Scott.
Yes, may I speak to the bill, please, sir? Briefly. All right, just one thing. My concerns about the security of our elections were first brought up last year by our U.S. Senator, and he had on his Facebook page several posts talking about the need to secure our elections, and that was at the very beginning of the year. And so I think this is a step in the right direction, and I move to report.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded to report the substitute of House Bill 46. And we will now vote on the voting board. Everybody voted. The clerk will close the roll. And the bill passes and reports 6-3. Delegate Ware, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Moving forward, just got to make sure we keep a quorum as we move forward. A lot of things happening simultaneously here. So next up, we'll have Delegate Batten.
Mr. Chairman, just as a reminder, I do have a bill coming up before transportation.
You do have a bill coming up, and if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Even if we lose you, we can lose one more, but nobody else can go because then we come to a stop. So
okay, all right. I just wanted to be sure. I just wanted to be sure you knew.
So that's fine. So and then we'll just have to keep balancing that. So all right. Let's see. This is get rolling here. Delegate Batten, you have House Bill 544. If you could present the bill for us, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My House Bill 544 is a much more modest version of voter ID. I think my predecessor up here, Delegate Ware, did a good job of explaining the need for comprehensive reform. My bill does not go nearly that far. I'm not going to rehash all of the conversation that was just had about voters' preference for showing ID and the testimony that was given there. My bill would simply allow a voter, when they are registering to vote, to have the option that photo ID be required when they vote. So now when you go to register to vote, the default would still be that no photo ID is required. However, if you so desire, when you register to vote, you can check a box that says, please ask for my photo ID when I vote. That way, folks who have concerns about their identity or want to show their photo ID to address possible concerns that maybe someone else would inadvertently vote in their name, or the election officer who was checking off the names there would inadvertently check off their name because photo ID was not required. This would simply, again, allow that voter to opt into a system that would require them to show photo ID.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Batten. Members of the committee, any questions for the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Delegate Adams.
Delegate Batten, does this legislation fit with the previous legislation we just heard? In other words, is yours only applicable if Delegate Ware's bill does not pass and become into law?
That would be correct. And obviously, we don't know what our friends at the other end of the hallway are going to do, so it's the consideration there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Delegate Reed.
Yes, Delegate Batten, is the current system capable of doing this, and is there a fiscal impact of what it would cost to upgrade the system to be able to implement what you're proposing?
The fiscal impact statement was indeterminate. It said that there was no impact on the Department of Elections. It was indeterminate on DMV, and then the localities would have to determine how best to incorporate it into their system.
The others.
So a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman?
Delegate Reed.
So this possibly could be an unfunded mandate on the localities?
Yes, I mean, it could be an unfunded mandate on the localities. I've spoken with some registrars who are fairly neutral on it, but it would be incumbent upon them to incorporate it into the existing system, which also, because the Department of Elections, sort of it's a top-down system, as far as what data is inputted in there, there may be some need for collaboration there between the localities and the Department of Elections on the state level.
All right, so we'll take now, if you've already spoken on the previous bill about this, either for or against, if there's not new information that you are bringing about this, I'd ask you to withhold your comments because I think we've heard all that we need to about the issue in general, and we do have to move forward fairly quickly. If anyone online, if you have the ability to raise your hand and let us see if you have something new in favor of this bill that we have not heard. And likewise, anyone online speaking against the measure, if we've something new that we have not heard. And don't see any there, so I would ask for anyone in the audience bringing new information about this issue that would like to speak in favor of this bill. And likewise, anyone opposed to House Bill 544. We can assume everyone that was opposed or in favor of the previous legislation is likely the same. If there's any correction to that, this is your chance. And we will, we have one.
We don't necessarily oppose, Deb Wakely, Good Women Voters of Virginia. We don't necessarily oppose it. It does put the option in the voters' hands.
Thank you. All right. Any other further question from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to make a motion that we lay it on the table due to the fact that there's a fair degree of uncertainty on the fiscal impact as well as the potential of an unfunded mandate on the localities.
So motion.
Chair, substitute motion that we report the bill.
That actually is the motion to lay on the table is a superior motion, but there would need to be a second for that. All right, we have a motion and second to lay on the table. That is a recorded vote. So, Bill. All right. Clerk will close the roll. The motion to lay on the table fails 2-4. So is there another motion? All right, properly moved and seconded to report the bill, and clerk will open the roll. Clerk will close the roll. Bill reports 5-2. Thank you, Delegate Batten. It does look like there may be something on here that we haven't gotten a letter yet. By the time this gets to full, you may end up needing to go upstairs, but I think you're prepared for that already. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll see where that goes. Thank you. And finally this morning, we have our chairman, Delegate Ranson, House Bill 185.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I have House Bill 185, and that's dealing with same-day registration. Currently, the law states, or currently what's in code is that a voter may register 21 days before the election, and the person that is registered, they have a 5-day waiting period. And what we have done we've adopted same-day registration, and that is supposed to be implemented October 1st of 2022. And we've had a lot of concerns across the state with the electoral boards and some of the registrars that have come to me, and they have not received clear guidance or a program implemented about how this is going to play out. So what this bill would do is repeal that provision and put us back into place with how the law read before.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to admit, this is one of the easiest bills to read I've ever seen. Any questions or comments from the members of the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Reed.
Delegate Ransone, is there somebody here from the State Election Board that could speak to what their current plans are? Because I'm assuming if this was going to be implemented on October the 1st, they probably have some plans already in motion, and they could tell us whether or not they are going to be able to achieve those goals.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Rachel Lawless from the Department of Elections. ELECT has started the planning process to implement this and be in compliance by October. There is no fiscal impact, although there has been quite a bit of planning on our end to make sure we're in compliance.
A follow-up question, Mr. Chair. So, I'm sorry, is it Lawless?
Lawless, yes.
Lawless.
Ironically.
Okay. So you believe that right now that you have the ability to be able to implement this by October the 1st, which would make it available for the general election this year?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
may I make a comment about that?
Absolutely.
Currently, the Department of Elections is undergoing an entire revamp of Veris. So I would also ask the Department of Elections how they feel all of that is going to be implemented at the same time.
Ms. Lawless, you want to give us some feedback on that?
We will be using Veris for the November election. We do not have a new system in place quite yet, so we will be operating with Veris. The changes would happen in Veris, which is what we are planning for.
Thank you. All right. Any others? All right, so we'll go online, and we have several folks again signed up for this bill as well. Let's see, I think Mr. Ferguson, you also had some comments on this bill. Are you with us still, Mr. Ferguson? Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. We also have Ms. Clara Wheeler. Ms. Wheeler, do you have comments on House Bill 544? And I'm sorry, House Bill 185, so. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Now we have online to speak against, we have Ms. Sheba Williams. Ms. Williams, are you with us? Good morning. Okay, Ms. Rand, yeah, and Ms. Williams, we're talking about same-day voter registration here and not early vote. Okay. So just to be clear. So, well, we appreciate your comments. Thank you very, very much. I know online we also have from the Voter Registrars Association, Ms. Allison Robbins. Ms. Robbins, are you with us? Thank you, Ms. Robbins. All right, anyone in the audience to speak in favor of this bill? And anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to this bill? See one.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, I'm Deb Wake, President of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. The League of Women Voters opposes the repeal of same-day voter registration law passed last year. Many of us League members also serve as election officers or observers. And in every election, at least one voter and often several arrive at our polling places ready, eager, and proud to vote, only to be turned away because the voter had moved, even if just for a few miles. This year, many 18-year-olds didn't show up in the system, even though they had registered, they were given provisional ballots, but we surely don't want to damper the enthusiasm of 18-year-olds to vote when this is where they start the lifelong process of participating in our democracy. To register at the precinct, voters must show proof of ID, residency, qualification to vote, and many people that are eligible to vote should be allowed to cast their ballots. We note that 21 states in the District of Columbia have same-day voter registration, and our research shows they've implemented it successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others to speak in opposition? Seeing one.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, James Heo with Fairfax County. We echo the comments of the previous speaker. We want to note that the county is fully prepared to implement this policy and that security measures are already in place with the existing statute that requires that voters that use same-day voter registration will have to vote provisionally. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Ranson, any closing thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I just want to make sure that make sure the members know that my bill has nothing to do with voter fraud or voter ID. This bill just wants to make sure that we are making sure that Department of Elections and our registrars are able to check registration status, where the voter lives, and right now we do not have that system in place.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to lay the bill on the table.
Motion to, you did, we didn't get to a second of either one of those, so the bill on the table, if there's a second for that, that's superior motion. So we have a motion to table the bill, moved and properly seconded. That is a recorded vote. So everyone voted. Appears that everyone that is here, so the motion to lay on the table fails by a vote of 2 to 5. So is there another motion? Moved and properly seconded to report this bill. Clerk will open the roll. And clerk will close the roll. Motion to report passes 5 to 2. Delegate Ranson, thank you very much. Thank you. And committee, I want to thank you. That completes our docket for this morning. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Yes, thank you very much. We are adjourned.